Hello there, welcome to Nerd.World Films. Today I'm continuing the Star Trek movie series with Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. Let's just get into this film. Okay, Star Trek V. Before I get started, if you like this video and any others on this channel, there's now a pretty full playlist of the Star Trek movies on this channel, but I also have another channel, Nerd.World, that has a lot of Star Trek content, some Star Wars content, but generally it focuses on any sci-fi universe I feel like covering at the time. But there is a lot of emphasis on Star Trek, Andromeda, Stargate, and other franchises I've started to branch into, such as Battlestar. If you think it might be interesting, link in the description below. So let's look at Star Trek V. Is it as bad as we remember? Well, let's start breaking it down. They clearly were trying to say something with this film. They weren't just trying to make an action blockbuster J.J. Abrams film like you see now. They were doing a very Star Trek thing, and they were trying to make a film that had something to say. It was trying to comment on religion and cultural stereotypes and a variety of other things, but it does it badly. The film is poorly paced. The film is badly acted, badly scripted. It also breaks a lot of Star Trek canon, which to me is some of its more egregious problems, such as the Enterprise managing to fly to the center of the galaxy. If the Enterprise could get to the center of the galaxy so quickly, why couldn't Voyager get home a little faster? Little detail. They played it a little more fast and loose back then, but bear in mind, by the time this thing was out, the concept of next generation was around, warp scales, putting a bit more science into Star Trek. So there wasn't really as much of an excuse for such ignorance of the established lore and canon and science that's behind Star Trek. Now, Star Trek is not truly hard canon is not hard science like some people really think it is. It's a loose reinterpretation of scientific theories, but it's not hard science. You want hard science, you go to something like The Expanse, maybe Babylon 5. Those are pretty hard science, even Battlestar Galactica to a degree. But Star Trek, it's not science fantasy, but it does play it a little loose with speed and how big space is and other such things, and scientific theories and concepts. All the same, this film just disregards anything. It just disregards its own established stories. Okay, so describing the plot of Star Trek V, the basic storyline is Spock's brother takes a load of hostages on the planet Nimbus 3, which was supposedly the planet of galactic peace, and there were Federation, Romulan and Klingon diplomatic representatives on the planet. These representatives are taken hostage, and he uses them as a way to force the Federation to send a starship, or draw a starship more accurately, to Nimbus. In doing so, he ends up with the Enterprise turning up and discovering Spock is on board, and then we get the revelation that Sybok and Spock are actually half brothers, with Sybok actually being full Vulcan from his father's previous marriage. Revelation about a random sibling that Spock has, not the first or last time that will happen. Now, Sybok is much more emotional. He doesn't believe in repressing his emotions, and he uses his telepathic abilities to influence others to make them feel more at peace with themselves, an almost religious prophet of a man. The film then begins where Sybok and his followers manage to take control of the Enterprise. They use the Enterprise to go to the center of the galaxy, where Sybok believes he can basically, touch the face of God or something insane. And that's basically what they do. And then they get there, and you got the famous scene of William Shatner saying, "Why does God need a starship?" Which, in fairness, was a good question. It didn't make sense. This being was clearly just a very powerful being that's clearly imprisoned on the planet, and Cyborg's been drawn to it in some kind of weird way. The film otherwise has, as I've said, a good cast. It's just kind of a wasted concept of a movie. It doesn't have any particularly impressive action. The villains are kind of forgettable. I mean, there's a Klingon bird of prey that attacks the Enterprise in an unsanctioned attack, where the captain believes that if he can defeat Kirk, the famous enemy of the Klingon Empire, he can gain a lot of glory and power for himself. The whole thing is kind of contrived as like to try and create a bit of extra menace going on behind the scenes, or in addition to the main story, to give it a little bit of action, because effectively you watch the thing and there isn't any action in it. It'd be good if you could draw this film as character driven or plot driven or something, but its characters are mostly forgettable. They're mostly uninteresting. They're so uninteresting they're not even really referenced again. You don't get Cyborg turning up in any other media really, and Spock will never really reference him again. Then again, he never really mentioned Michael Burnham either, so seems like Spock and his family are in a very complicated relationship. I think that overall, the biggest problem I have with Star Trek V is I can never tell what it's trying to be. The film's trying to say something, but I don't know what it's trying to say. Not really. And it's trying to, sometimes it doesn't know whether it wants to be funny. It doesn't know whether it wants to be sci-fi. It doesn't know whether it wants to be some kind of pseudo-religious commentary. It tries to be all of them. Now, a lot of the times, these things can be blended and they can be done very well. Star Trek IV, for example, manages to blend science, social commentary, politics, and good comedy, all in a well-paced movie with no action. A film with no violence. This film has relatively little violence, relatively little action. What there is mostly space violence. So it's... But it just doesn't achieve anything. None of the characters are memorable. There's no iconic lines aside from really when you get to the end of the film you start thinking about the whole God scene, which is about the only real scene people remember, or the fan dance done by Uhura, which is nice, but again, it feels somewhat... everything feels shoehorned in. Every storyline of it is contrived. It takes too much for granted. It takes too much circumstance, too much happenstance. It's a load of contrived nonsense of too many things having to go Cyborg's way in order to get what he wants. The idea that he could so easily take over a starship is ridiculous. Just everything about it. It's just one strange coincidence, happenstance, or another, as I say, contrived situation after another to advance the plot of the film rather than real character development or real story development. Nothing about this film advances what we know about the characters, the story, or the Star Trek universe in any significant way. And it doesn't add anything to the mythology, and it's so bad, in fact, that it's almost... I wouldn't say decanonized, but people try to forget, and I certainly try to forget, that this film happened. And as I said, to top all that off, it's poorly paced, as I previously mentioned. It's badly written. The dialogue is sometimes cringeworthy. It just jumps effortlessly between different subject matters without it earning it, without it really... Alright, I'll stop ragging on it. I'll try and find some positive things. There are some good things about the film. The Enterprise is a beautiful ship. We see plenty of it. I'll be honest, I can't remember the Klingon captain's name, but I do remember his wild haircut always used to amuse me. I actually did like the character of Cyborg. I liked the idea. I did think it was kind of, again, a shoehorned in bit of drama for it to be Spock's brother. It's like Not everyone in the Star Trek universe needs to know each other. It's a bit like in Star Wars. Everyone doesn't have to be a Skywalker or a Palpatine. You know what I mean? They could have made... They didn't have to make her a Palpatine. And in this, they didn't have to be another son of Sarek. He could just have been a Vulcan. Hell, they could have retconned into Star Trek Enterprise that he was the descendant of T'Pol and Trip Tucker or something. And that would have been interesting as a retconning in story. He could have just been a generic Vulcan and they wanted to have him connected to someone, have him connected to them. That could explain why his values were a little skewed, but no, I mean, to me, it was all well and good him being a Vulcan, but why did he have to be Spock's brother? It seemed very left field, and it was like it was almost just to have, that's my brother, dum dum dum, and not actually be relevant, because it wasn't relevant to the plot. And that's the problem with this film. Everything in it is not relevant to anything. I was looking for good things, wasn't I? I like it when Kirk challenges God. God. It's not really God, it's just a very powerful alien being with great powers, but is trapped on a planet because even though it's powerful, it can't just fly through space, clearly. It's not a member of the Q Continuum or anything, or if it is, it's been trapped there by somebody. So, yeah, I'm sorry. There's not much to say about this film that's good. Some people out there clearly like it. I like everything Star Trek, pretty much. And there's only you get, particularly because it's a serialized TV series, you obviously get a lot of hits and misses in the actual television shows. That sometimes they land a story that's excellent and other times they really don't. The films, it's usually said the even-numbered films are good, the odd-numbered films are bad. And this was the first film that came out after the so-called greatest Star Trek trilogy. And it's an odd number. And quite frankly, it nearly buried the franchise. It's just terrible. It performed poorly, to say the least. And, yeah, it's definitely my least favourite of all the Star Trek movies. If you love it, that's great. More power to you. I'm glad that people enjoy this film, because I know people do. And the films are meant to be escapism. Star Trek in particular, it's meant to show you a brighter, better future. And a lot of the things in this film do show that. Even the planet Nimbus. One of the things I actually like about Nimbus, it looks like it's Star Trek Tatooine, basically. It's a dusty dirtball of a planet with no real importance other than the fact that it's meant to be the planet of galactic peace, where the three superpowers come together and work together in cooperation and peace and trust and understanding. I actually like that idea. The idea that you would dedicate an entire planet to that. It just obviously didn't work, but the fact that all three powers at least took it seriously enough to try, even though they all ultimately abandoned it. Even the Federation clearly really giving up on it. And their own ambassador on the planet just wallowing in self-pity and getting drunk. Played, by the way, by the fantastic David Warner. There's a compliment, an actor who he's basically so good he can't do something wrong. But you've got a lot of good, talented men and women in this film. A lot of the veteran Star Trek actors in this film. And none of them save it. And it's not shocking that this was the only outing of William Shatner directing any kind of Star Trek. It's not surprising. This film is regarded generally as the worst. And like I said, if people enjoy it, that's what films are for. You're supposed to enjoy them. If you don't enjoy them, you don't go back and watch them. But as a film that is part of a larger franchise, and someone being a little obsessive compulsive like me, if I decide to watch all the films, I have to watch this one as well, and it always kind of turns my stomach, the idea of sitting through this mess of a film that's so... It feels so long, even though it's not that long. It feels it, because it's a struggle to get through. It has a few good scenes woven in that, again, everything is so disjointed and contrived to get to the next scene that it's just... Ugh. Anyway... So, on that note, I'm sure it'll be no shock to anyone if I'm going to score this movie in my personal scoring system of how many pieces of a nerd pie I give it, it's only getting one. One piece of pie. It is awful. Truly awful. And I hope there are people out there that like it. I hope there are people out there, and I'm sure there are, that find this to be their favourite film, and I want to hear why. I want to hear why someone actually loves this film, because I would like to find more positivity in this movie, and I do like the idea that people like it, and I do know people that like it. I've encountered people at Star Trek conventions and stuff that actually like this film and love it, and they embrace it. And sometimes a bad movie can be enjoyable, and this film, to be honest, isn't so diabolically unwatchable that it becomes just bad, but it is in that bad watchable cringe kind of way. That's where the film kind of sits in the franchise as well. You have to watch it if you're a Star Trek fan. It's watchable, but not necessarily because it's like Wrath of Khan or First Contact good or something. It's watchable because you kind of, you can sit through it. You can turn your brain off and go through this film. Right, so with all that said, waffling stopping now. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. Comment down below. Again, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. If I'm being too harsh on it, feel free to let me know. Because, as I said, I really want to believe that there are people out there that really genuinely love it and get something out of it. And that's what everything in this franchise should be for. So all the people that always hate on their own franchises that they love so much, don't. You can. I dislike this film, but I don't hate it. I'm not going to rag on it. They tried something with this film which didn't work, and that's basically how it ended up. It's not a complete train wreck, but it's not really that good. So, ending there, before I start off on another tangent. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, you're a beautiful human being. And bye-bye.
Gently down the stream, merrily, 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 boat. Life is but a dream.